Hey everybody. I am super excited for this next panel. I thought it was very witty when I came up with return on relationship as a play on return on investment. But really this panel is exploration of the direct fan marketing. But really, hence the beginning of this title, it's meant to talk about what that symbiotic relationship looks like between fans and artists rather than how do you squeeze more money out of your super fans. So I brought on some great people to be able to talk all about this direct to fan relationship. So without further ado, I'm going to bring up our moderator, Harriet. Hi, Harriet. Welcome.
Hello, excited to be here.
I'm excited for this panel as well, and I'm going to pull up our wonderful panelists. Please, Harriet, take it away.
All right, so very excited to get started with today's session. We've got some incredible panelists up here with me. So I'd just like to introduce these guys. We've got Justin, who is co-founder and CEO of Black Wax. We've got Abaza, who is head of record label division at Swangs Avenue. And we've also got Sarah Beth Perry. So Sarah is from With the Band and founder and CEO. So I'd love you guys just to introduce yourselves and share a bit about your work. So let's go with Sarah first.
Yeah, sure. Hello, everyone. Nice to meet you all. I see a few familiar faces in the chat. Hi, shout out to JJ. My name is Sarah Beth Perry, and I'm the founder and CEO of With the Band. And With the Band is a fan engagement company based out of Nashville, Tennessee. So we've created some large band activations for artists like Jonas Brothers, Casey Musgraves, and then after COVID, ended up launching a web app fan club platform where it's a turnkey solution for artists to better engage, manage, and monetize their fan bases.
Nice. Justin?
Hey everybody, I'm Justin. I am the founder and CEO of Black Wax. We're a talent management company and an artist development company. When we started Black Wax, we were managing the artists like Ari Lennox, Capella Gray, who had a really big song in the US called Gallus. We had a couple of producers who worked on Bryson Tiller's record Don't, and the Cardi B there's a Cardi B and a Partisan Fontana record backing it up that came out a few years ago. And on the artist development side, we're working with this new incredible artist from the US named Fabo that's making amazing strides right now. And yeah, we're Black Wax, talent management and artist development company.
Amazing. And Abaza?
Hi, everyone. My name is Abaza. I'm from Uganda. I work with a record label, Swangs Avenue. We're more of a production house, record label, talent management. And we are currently have a roster of about 8 artists and 2 imprints. And we're mostly servicing the entire East African region. We're currently trying to expand to Ghana. And label's been around for about 15 years. A lot of people wouldn't know about it, but we're kind of a big deal this side. So, yeah.
Great. Well, thank you all for being here in our various time zones. Fun fact, Abaza is the first speaker Benja Music has ever had from Uganda. That is a great. I'm glad that we're having it in our panel. Amazing. Cool. And yeah, I'm Harriet JW. So I founded a live event and YouTube channel called Secret Sessions, but we now are more focused on artist development here in the UK. So just a word to everyone. I'm sure you know this from other panels today, but if you do have a question, just drop it in the chat and I will read some out as we go. But to kick it off, why don't we just have a think about why it's important for artists to be able to reach their fans directly. So I'm going to start with you, Justin. What do you think about that?
I think why it's important is because you want to be able to cut out the middleman personally. I mean, you look at what just happened with UMG and how they just pulled every record off of TikTok, and it's something you don't really have control over, but they can't pull yourself off of these platforms that you can connect to these consumers directly for. That's why you have Instagram and all these other platforms that you should be able to build those connectivities with your fans directly on.
Yeah. Do you think that's more of a a thing right now in 2024 because we have all of these different platforms than it used to be?
Yeah, I think so. I think it's just a lot of traffic online right now, and there's a lot of advertisement floating around right now. So honestly, the best way to really convey a message to your artist is to be able to like find ways to get to them directly.
Definitely. I mean, Sarah, I think given your introduction, I think I know what you're going to say, but what do you think about this subject?
I was literally talking to a pretty big artist team yesterday about this, and they were explaining how their strategy was basically building bigger social media accounts when this person probably is already in the top 100 list of like popular people on social media. And it still baffles me, the fact that a lot of artists are solely building their fan bases on platforms they don't control. And by that, I mean, they can't directly talk to their Instagram followers. Yeah, you could, I guess, sit down and DM every single person. And when you're a smaller artist, that's awesome. But when you have millions, thousands of followers, you can't reach every single person. And based on the algorithm, it's like 10% of your audience is actually seeing your posts. So I'm such a big proponent of the artist needs to own their data, whether that's emails you're collecting or phone numbers. You need to make sure that you have a direct line of access to your fans. So if UMG pulls your song, or if Instagram goes down tomorrow, you still can be able to contact your fans.
Yes, 100%. So definitely some kind of rumblings of the labels being able to do things that are unexpected. I think it's interesting how, UMG are now preaching that one of their main strategies for the year ahead is direct to fan.
Yeah.
So as our label representative, Abaza, what do you think about this?
I mean, given what Taylor Swift just did, and especially the stuff that's going on in East Asia with the whole K-pop sensation, it's really the way to go right now. The algorithm leans content towards ads, and all the creators have to pay for ads to get to the top. So it's like the only way right now. Plus, I guess over the last 3 years, there's been maybe it's a theory, an anti-establishment movement. So like stuff like Be Real, or stuff like I think TikTok tried a Be Real as well version, or something that's like more in the moment, as opposed to something a lot more like tailored to the platform. So people are looking for more like moments where they can actually experience the art that creators are making, as opposed to this really like blanket messaging that goes out, especially through the platform. So I think super fans are really like the way to go now. So I'm all for it, like 200%. Yeah.
Interesting early mention of super fans as well. So I'd be interested just to hear, Abaza, what does that word super fan mean to you? What does it represent?
Well, these are it's pretty self-explanatory. These are guys who will pay anything to experience something that really doesn't have a price. So it could be a meet and greet, it could be a coloring book, it could be anything. But just any way to interact with the artists and with the work that means the most to them in their life. So it stops being about like the ad. I feel like over maybe the last 20 or 30 years, it was just like the most noise you can make, and then the internet kind of made the world a lot smaller. So kind of people really want to know that someone is speaking their language, or actually like understanding who they are and speaking to their challenges day to day. So I feel we are all super fans of some product. And I think it's really just about, does this product or does this music speak to me? Does this solve a problem for me? Is it my tribe? That type of thing. So
yeah. Do you like the term, Sarah, super fan?
I love the term super fan. I think fangirl too is like a big word that we use a lot. That we were just talking in the office this week about how we filmed a YouTube video. It's not out yet, but about the difference between a fangirl versus a sports fan and how they're viewed so differently. And there's a lot of connotations to music fans that I don't think we put on fans of other things, whether that is, any type of other entertainment like TV, movies, or sports. But one definition that someone kind of told me recently that I feel like has really stuck with me was a super fan is anyone who shares it. So like, I had always kind of thought it was anyone who like put $1 down. That was kind of my definition. But they're saying anyone who just tells someone about it. And Nielsen did a study a few years ago, and it showed that they consider super fans. It was like 20% of an artist audience, and that 20% of fans actually was responsible for 80% of all revenue that came in. So the super fans, like, they're your most important people you should be focusing on.
Yeah, it's interesting that idea of sharing, isn't it? Because it's kind of confirming that it is in somewhat part of your identity. Like, that's why we share things, because it has some resonance to our identity. And if we think about, like, I'll share that I wear a Whoop band, for example, or that I drink Huel because there's something in my identity that wants people to know that I have that like attachment to fitness. And it's like super cringe when you start actually breaking it down. But it's interesting to think about what these artists represent for people beyond the music as well, which I think we'll get onto. But we've got some good questions here. So Miriam asks, if people start building their own platforms, how do you cut through the noise and reach new fans or markets via collaboration, via brand partnerships, or is it something else? I don't know if anybody has any immediate thoughts on that.
I would say, like, automatically, yeah, it's going to happen, because that's what I did. Like, I saw the problem happening, and I, being a previous fangirl and then working on artist teams, saw that someone needed to build a platform where artists can still control their fan base. And so, like, that's why I built with the band is, yes, there's technically a middleman in between it, but the artist controls all of their data. They control all of the pricing. They control the fan base. Like, they could take it off tomorrow if they wanted to. So I think it's about having super honest, open, and like transparent relationships with these platforms. That's not like gatekeepers.
Justin or Abaza, any immediate thoughts on that one?
Honestly, I'm trying to figure this part out now, how to actually cut through the noise. There's just extremely too much noise in the industry right now. Like, my primary focus is really like kind of text message marketing right now, because I know me personally, I don't really check my emails like that. And so like the one thing I will see is my text message. And so like that's one thing that I know that like if the internet shuts off tomorrow, like we're probably going to still have access to text messages.
Maybe this is why flash mobs got so popular. It's like cut out the technology and just get in people's faces, perhaps. I mean, from my point of view, every artist that we work with, that we teach this method to, we start with a spreadsheet. And that, it's the clipboard going around the live show with the pen and paper. And it's, I think the whole idea of that we need tech to be able to do these very kind of human things. And I think one of the reasons why we think we need tech to do these human things in the beginning is because everybody is so obsessed with this idea of scaling immediately, when actually we don't need to scale immediately. Actually we want to build like this perfect little burning fire before we chuck Facebook ads gasoline on it, or before we try and make it go viral, because all that's doing is like scaling something that might not be perfect. So to get started with a pen and paper, I don't know how that would approach GDPR, but in the beginning, we don't need to worry about that. All right, so I would like to know just a little bit about the beginnings for you guys, Sarah and Justin. You have your own companies. What actually inspired you to begin? I know, Sarah, you've touched on it, but is there anything that really was the catalyst for you?
I think the big thing for me is when I was, and I still am, a super fan, all of us who are in music, it's like we all went into it because we were big fans of music. But I felt like there was this disconnect between what the fans were wanting to do and what the artist team was doing. And it wasn't until I started realizing there's more jobs in the music industry besides just an artist and the label that I realized that a bridge could be made between that. And where it really, I feel like the biggest thing, I guess, like in my heart was the power of the fan has not been harnessed. And if someone could just put the artist resources behind the power of the fan, then you could just create a snowball that keeps on rolling. And so like that was and still is kind of my whole path forward for With the Band is like, okay, how do we use these awesome artist resources to then empower the fans to then support the artists? And then it just keeps going.
I need to know, as I'm sure everyone else does, that who were you or still probably are a huge fan of? Fangirl of?
All the classic boy bands, you know. I was a big One Direction fan, Jonas Brothers. Still, I love like singer-songwriter, so James Bay, John Mayer.
Nice.
I go to way too many shows still. But
yeah, you sound like you're younger than I am. Okay, so what about you, Justin? What made you start Black Wax?
Yeah, so I actually started in college. I was real big in like marketing and kind of just wanted to be the best marketer out there. And I eventually realized that one of the fastest means of marketing is through music. And so why don't I shift focus into marketing musical artists and kind of help build their brands up and then utilize their influence and their music to go and market products. If you look at today's biggest artists, I mean, all the billionaires are the classified billionaires all have product that are making them billionaires, not their music. And that just goes back to the superfan conversation. They've built a really large superfan fandom base around the world that's willing to spend a lot of money and time on them.
Yeah, 100%. I think my first introduction to IP issues was when Taylor Swift started her very own secret sessions, which little did she know there was a small little event in London with the same name, but it felt very new what she was doing there, hosting these tiny little fan concerts in people's front rooms. And like, obviously what's happened with Taylor Swift has happened. And just, when artists say, there's no point in doing a thing for 20 people because we need millions, like, yeah, you might need millions with the Spotify model, but to build like small engaged fan bases, you can get started with 5, 10, 15, 20 person activations.
Right.
Go on. No, you go.
I give people a perspective, like, the average university, at least in the States, probably has about 10,000 students, right? And you only need 10,000 individuals to spend $100 on you in the course of a year to make $1 million. A lot of people when you break it down like that, and you have access to the whole world with the internet.
Yeah, exactly. And it is really interesting when you actually start to break down those metrics, like how much it would cost to make £1 million on Spotify, or even just 1,000 and how many people you're actually talking. Whereas if you're selling merch, like you're just making that money a lot quicker from a lot smaller amount of people. And I think actually doing those sums is encouraging as opposed to overwhelming. It's overwhelming when you're thinking, how am I going to reach 1 million people to pay my rent?
Right.
Where it's like, oh, hang on, I could just sell 500 t-shirts for £5 and I've paid my rent. Right. Great. So Abaza, what you're doing is definitely unique in helping grow the music industry in East Africa. But there's a lot else that your job encompasses by the sounds of it. How do you make it easy for artists to develop, and how's that sort of changing as we move into these kind of modern times of the industry?
I think what I'll say, the model we use is still considerably dated, but it does seem like, at least from the outside, it does seem like it makes the artist seem individual. So what we have is we have several different business units: content, film and content production. So the camera guys can design. We have events. We have a roster of about 10 influencers or so, like the macro influencers. We have an events team. We have this in-house distributor. We have label services, and then of course like studio, like regular stuff. So in terms of how it helps develop is that it cuts a lot of the costs. So why I said it's a bit dated is because it cuts a lot of our costs, and we don't necessarily have to spend on production or on shooting content or on getting a message out through influencers, let's say with marketing or something. So I guess one of the big advantages of having that team or that entire sort of 360 team is it helps cut the costs. It helps like if there is a brief that comes out like today, like a trend that's happening, we can be able to have something going out for one of that is tomorrow, as opposed to like waiting, sending in an invoice, blah blah blah. So I guess in terms of developing, it does help us have a much quicker turnover between when we get a brief and when we execute it. In-house distribution does help us a lot, especially with sync and playlisting. I know that model is that's why I said it was a bit dated. So that model is, or that business model, streaming business model, is not really what we're talking about here. We're talking about the alternative. And that's something that we have. We don't have a department that just that focuses on audience strategy. A lot of our initiatives are focusing on like gatekeepers and teams that deal with PR, teams that deal with the media, but not so much teams that actually go out and deal with audiences. So I think that's definitely something I would like to learn a lot from today.
Yeah, nice. And speaking of content, I think the kind of direct to fan model becoming more prominent has definitely changed the way that people create and what they create. Is there anything you've noticed, Sarah, particularly like working with the bigger artists? Because I often think about it like, when the young girls go to, or people in general go to festivals and they'll like backcomb their hair to make themselves look like they've just got out of bed when actually they've spent ages doing it. I think there's like a move of that with content. So it's like the more kind of intimate style, but then there's people like Abaza and labels like creating that intimate style. And it's just this sort of weird mix of like what's real and what's not. Can you speak to that a little bit, Sarah?
Yeah, I would say audience wise, from the content that artists post on other platforms as well as on our platform, by far, like authentic content does the best. So I always kind of joke in our office, like the less time you spend on a TikTok, probably the better it's going to do, because it's the fact of like, I'm authentically just filming myself with no filters or whatever and posting it versus a 1 minute edited sizzle reel of the tour. And like it, especially with the Gen Z coming up. And if you have a Gen Z audience, they want to see the real you. They don't want to see a like picture perfect you. They want to know your flaws. That's like how they feel connected. So definitely you can still have some of that produced content, but I would lean more towards just, we were talking right before we went on the panel about how just you don't have to quote create the content, but capture it. So like, what are things you're already doing? Harriet said that quote that I'm just going to use forever because it's so genius. That's what I always try to tell artists. It's not like, hey, let's film content now. It's like, okay, no, well, what's on your schedule today? Do you have a write? Okay, take a picture of like your guitar and notebook in the session, and that's what you post. So you don't have to be doing all these extra things in order to create good content.
Yeah. So the quote that we threw around for anybody that is interested was, great content isn't created, it's collected. So this idea of just sort of trying to have a third eye on what you're doing. And, I can already hear artists being like, but I can't, I'm in the zone. And just, a 25th of a second is all we need, or, totally. 7-second video just to bring your fans in.
Yeah.
All right. Justin, there's a question from Kelsey that is, what are some strategies for approaching email and data collection for artists that haven't prioritized it in the past?
one strategy that we utilize is merch giveaways. That's been very effective. People love to receive things in exchange for something, and so we'll go host like pop-up listening events in small markets, in major markets, and play some new artists. And whoever's invited say, hey, if you really like this music and you want a free T-shirt, text this number, and then when you text, we'll reply back and get your information and send you a link to go and get a T-shirt that we can mail to you for free. And then from there, we'll be able to collect email data and mailing address from that giveaway, and handling the merchandise component.
Yeah. So the key is really like that exchange, isn't it?
There's some type of exchange there. Yeah, that typically is the best strategy.
Yeah. Anyone else on that? Sarah, Abaza?
I would say one thing we've done is like a company, it wasn't specifically for any artist, excuse me, was we make like digital downloads, like you would think of any business type coach, like that, says, oh, this checklist, like download this checklist and you input your email. We've made those that are directed towards fandoms. And so like we have like a Taylor Swift coloring book, or we did like a Niall Horan song bracket. So you rank your songs, and we'll do it just around whatever is kind of like trending at that moment. Like we did a like Grammys bingo card, so people could like play bingo when they watch the Grammys. And those have been like way more successful than I ever thought about, growing our mailing list. Like it's over 20,000 fans now just because of making those digital downloads and then posting about them on TikTok.
Nice. Great. Cool. So back to more of these kind of direct to fan specifics. So I think direct to fan for artists in the beginning can often feel quite daunting. I think that the more traditional idea of being an artist is that you create, you give it away, you present it, and there is that kind of barrier between the fans and the artist. And particularly with social media now, I think the lines can sometimes sort of blur between artists and fans, which can be a good thing, but can be a difficult place to navigate. What do you think, like some of the kind of first steps artists can take to sort of dip their toes in if they're used to more of the sort of traditional artist-fan relationship?
I'd say start in your hometown first and put all of your energy into your hometown. Start by working with all the producers and songwriters within your hometown. Figure out who the DJs are, all anybody that's a tastemaker within your hometown. You should figure out, how can I get my hometown to talk about you? Because I would imagine your average hometown is going to have at least 100,000 people that live there, maybe, unless you live in a really, really small hometown. But even then, everybody should know who you are if you're in that small hometown. And I think that's the first step, because once you get everybody in your hometown to know you, your hometown individual, they have someone that lives outside of town that they can start spreading the music to and say, hey, this is what I'm listening to over here.
Yeah, that's really, really good. And if you do live in a tiny, tiny town, you get to be the biggest artist in that town. So Abaza, what about you? What are your thoughts on those sort of first steps to building that?
Well, I mean, thanks, Sarah and Justin. What you guys are sharing is really helpful. Writing a bunch of notes right now. But I think a good starting point is just start. And I think this morning, well, I don't know what time it is for you guys, but it's about 11 here. And the morning there was a meeting I was in with a band, and they're struggling with content because they're saying exactly what you're saying. I'm in the zone, I'm on the instrument, blah, blah, blah. I can't necessarily shoot. And it's just like, just shoot. Like we don't even need anything, just start. So I think that's the first step. Start local, but start, and then be as consistent as possible, because then you'll gather as much feedback. And I'll give you an example. Is one of the artists that her content strategy is to just post a thing every day. And then once we found out what was working, then now we post that thing every day. So it allows you to kind of read the room and find out what's going on, and then react to what the fans actually need from you. Like, I do believe we're in a service industry, and it's not as individualistic as the media makes it seem. But yeah, that's kind of what I would say: start and then be consistent.
Yeah, nice. Anna A has asked, what are some examples of successful marketing from smaller artists, i.e. not Taylor Swift? Which I think is a great question, because yeah, often we are actually citing these huge budgeted marketing teams, and actually I think it is good to talk about those, like, you know, those artists that have the sort of 5 to 100,000 follower marks, and what they're doing, and what is actually kicking off those viral those viral moves from artists at that level. Has anything come to mind for any of you?
I think a big part of it is knowing who your average fan demographic is. So whether you're an artist that's just starting out and you literally have no idea who your fan is, like, who are comparable artists to you, who have the same sound, who, you know, their fans are going to be the same as your fans, and then figure out, okay, what age are they? Where do they live? Where do they spend time in person? Where do they spend time online? And use that as your guide for knowing, like, what even type of marketing to do, because there's so many different types of marketing, it can get overwhelming. But if you're, like, for instance, you know, someone we work with has, their average fan is like a 60-year-old male. I'm not going to market to him the same way that I would market to a 16-year-old fangirl. And so, like, for them, okay, we're using more like Facebook, we're using more live streams, where with the younger audience, it's like, okay, what is that super authentic, quick content that you're, you know, putting out more of? So I think focusing first on who is your fan, to then see which marketing campaign would be best for you and your fan base.
Yeah, I mean, here's an example of someone right now. There's an artist in the US that's currently going viral named 4Bats, the number 4 bats. And his whole narrative that they pushed online to be able to cut through the clutter was the idea of him dressed up like this really, like, thuggish kind of guy from the hood. But when he sing, and they have this video of him singing, like, in this, like, really, like, kind of, I guess you can call it a ghetto environment. And when he sings, he has this most beautiful angelic voice. And that's kind of like the narrative they were pitching, like, wow, like, we didn't expect him to sound like this. And it triggered a lot of people's curiosity to, like, investigate. And then once they reeled in to, like, listen to what he was saying, you know, it was really good music. And, you know, they just kept coming with amazing content to keep that audience's attention and kind of bring that newfound audience into his world.
Yeah. And I think with sort of content that hits or goes viral, or even, like, not even goes viral, but on a small scale connects, it's because there's some emotion that someone has felt. And I think I speak to a lot of artists and they're like, well, I don't want to, like, make people cry, you know, I'm not trying to, like, I don't want to, you know, play on people's emotions. But emotions isn't just sadness. Like, emotions is happiness. Emotions is, like, what you just spoke about, shock. It's making people laugh. It's making people entertained. So I think artists can sort of think about their role in their day-to-day life with their friends and family. Like, what do people come to you for? Like, do you make them laugh? Do you like a really good listener? Like, what is that emotion that you incite in people, and try and do that with your audience as well.
Right.
And I think something that we talk a lot about is, like, what people are looking for in kind of storytelling is a journey from A to Z. That journey could be your day in the studio. That journey could be how you overcame a breakup. That journey could be how you know, the grief of someone passing away, whatever it is. It could be, like, getting up in the morning, but people are looking to see something happen from A to Z. And I think that's often missing in content, where there's not really anything happening. So for artists to try and sort of just pick out those little stories in your life and in your day, and get used to trying to tell them online like you would tell them to a friend. I feel like we could get really stuck on content because it's such a sort of big part of it right now. Is there any tips that anybody has in that content space of just, I think connection is the really important word, how to kind of connect with your fans?
How to connect and start conversation. I think everybody's goal is to fight for people's time. We have so many distractions right now. And so in order to get someone to stop being distracted, you need to have them focus on something and start a conversation about something. That's why for me personally, as a manager, it's very good to understand how to maneuver and market around good conversation and bad conversation, because at the end of the day, it's still conversation.
Yep.
So true. Tying that together with, I feel like a few people in the comments have all been asking like, okay, what are platforms they can use? I think, you hit the nail on the head, Harriet, of like, start with a clipboard at the merch booth and have people put their email down. So I know like MailChimp, you get up to 250 email addresses that you can send newsletters to for free. I don't know of a texting service that is free. If anyone else knows of one, feel free to throw it in the chat. But MailChimp would be a great one for email. And then if you're wanting to more directly like own your fan base too, for beginner level artists, like I would recommend like a Memberful or Patreon, so you can do that. And then also like Discord, so that you can't like gather as much data as some of the other platforms. But if you're wanting to start with just free tools, those are the ones I would recommend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think remembering about platforms that any platform is in some ways a third party. So look at what that relationship with that third party is.
Totally.
I always think like, how can you solve this problem in the simplest way possible, right? You want to text your fans, get a burner phone for a tenner, have a fan phone. Like, how can you just get started with it on a really small scale, see how it works for you before you go and blow it up with tech? So we've touched a little bit on authenticity. Again, it's such a big word. Monica's asked, she's curious about artists wanting to stay authentic, and what marketing agendas can be pushed towards to grow the fan base there. Firstly, I think it would just be like really useful to get your thoughts on what that word authenticity actually means when we're talking about direct to fan. Abaza, do you have any thoughts on authenticity with your artists and what it means?
Well, I don't have any definition within the framework of direct to fan. Mm-hmm. But I mostly have I guess it's from like, I think Seth Godin or something. This is marketing, and he talks about emotional labor versus authenticity. So as opposed to like, getting up on the phone or on wherever your platform is, and then you just start, bawling your eyes out, or, like being real. Let me just put it that way. Which is not necessarily what the fans needed you for. I think I liked the way he used that term, where it's like, you can still be sincere and in the moment, but you still have a job to do. You're still a professional. And so if your fans, I go back to the service industry. If the problem that you're solving for them is, I get to watch this person cry, you're on the right path. But if it has nothing, if what they need from you has nothing to do with where you are in that particular moment, then you're much safer just staying away from what. And I'm not saying authentic in terms of being fake or whatever. I'm just saying like authentic in terms of just saying everything and not necessarily filtering out what's actually relevant to your fans. So I don't know if that changes the.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head. You said you didn't have a definition, but then just the words being real, I think is ultimately what authenticity comes down to. I mean, in my book, what do you guys think, Sarah, Beth, or Justin?
I'll answer this one from the perspective of TikTok. Like a lot of artists are like, oh, I don't want to get on TikTok because it's corny or this or that. And because every time I see something go viral, is someone doing something corny. That's what they did, you know? And that's how they are. Maybe that's authentic to who they are. Maybe they're just a corny individual, but people are connecting with that because maybe they're corny too. I don't know. But you need to get on this platform and do what you've been doing on all the other platforms that you've been doing. It's the exact same thing, but you just have to do it. You just have to convert whatever content you've been doing on your favorite platform right now. Just do it on TikTok, and that's being authentic to whatever that marketing agenda is for that particular platform, or anything that you do in general. Any marketing initiative, just show up and do it your way.
Yeah. I think there's two parts to this. One about, artists I feel like have spoken up a lot in the past, year and a half maybe, about feeling like they're pushed to do things that they don't want to do marketing wise. I'm biased, so you probably know where I'm going with this, but it's, if you want to grow your fan base, you can't complain about the things you need to do to get there. And I think a lot of times artists are like, oh, well, I just want to be an artist. And it's like, okay, cool. But 1,000 streams on Spotify is not going to be able to provide for you to live as just an artist. So I think you need to figure out, okay, yes, I might have to do more work than I thought I would as an artist. However, what are the things that do feel authentic to me? Like you were just saying, of how do I be authentic on this platform? Whether that's like, there's a new guy we are launching next week, and he is one of the most country people like I've ever met in my entire life. But he's so authentic in it. And he's not a, let me be funny on camera type. He just plays his music and that's what he does. And so every single clip on social media is him playing his music, and it still does well. So like, just stick to what you do well and what's authentic to you, and that will convert to those, followers or
amazing list. Right. I have completely missed the 2-minute mark message 5 minutes ago. So I think we'll leave it there, but that went really quickly and I thoroughly enjoyed it. So I really hope everyone got some good insight. So thanks to Sarah, Beth, Justin, and Abaza, and Christine. Thanks for having us. That was amazing.
Of course. Thank you guys so much. This is a topic near and dear to me, so we could talk about this forever, but unfortunately not right now. Thank you all so much. This was wonderful. Have a great night, you guys. Abaza, get to bed. And everyone else, see you guys in the next chat. Thank you all. Goodbye.
Thank you, guys.